I started collecting gigs in 1991, and the interest built from there, and as my collection grew, so did my interest in how they were made. And I was in Van Buren one day, and in a hardware store, and I seen a real nice crafted gig, and I said, "Who in the world made that gig?" And he said, a Paul Martin from Bunker, Missouri. And I immediately wanted him to teach me, so I went into some research who he was better and find out more about him, and got his number and drove up there one day and just took a chance, and he's out in his shop working, and introduced myself, and we got to talking, and I told him what I was interested in, and he said, "I'm getting pretty old and wouldn't be interested in doing that." But I told him about the little, as we call them, spikes or bow gigs, either term is correct. I said, "Would you make me a little 4-prong?" I think it was that same day, it could have been a little later. But he made me a little 4-prong, I still have it, bow gig that you shoot with a bow. And I was just tickled at it. It just made just like the big river gigs. And I think after that, sometime later, I contacted the Missouri Folk Art Program. And they contacted Mr. Paul Martin and told him, you know, there was $1,500 to be paid for the teacher. And he finally accepted, and you remember, or Dana would remember his exact words, said, "I'm just doing this for my funeral expenses." And that won him over. He taught me. I drove up there, like I said, for 6 months and learned what I could. You don't by no means learn it all. You just don't learn it in 6 months. Trained myself some after that, and took on the responsibility later of teaching others. Paul, let me brag on him a little bit. I'll never be the gig maker Paul Martin was. He said he'd made about 3,000 gigs in the time that he spent making them. And at his prime, he could make 2 a day. It's real good, believe me. And he was just one of them guys that his gig held up good, but they were just beautiful. He could cut one out. He never measured. He just cut it out by eye, and he didn't have to grind, sand, file, or anything. He got through with it. He just threw. He used a hammer and a chisel and his forge, and he was I just can't say enough about him. He was just that good.
Do you feel anything, I know that some of the things you learned were really important, but was there any aspect of gig making that was the most challenging? You mentioned beards, for example.
If I could name one thing, I really would have to name about 3.
Go ahead.
The cutting the prongs out, they got to be straight and same width and even, and then getting the beards straight across, you know, one higher than the other, and lopsided and everything, and that would be 2 of them, of course. The socket. I've always had trouble rolling the socket over. On the other hand, Steve, it was just a natural thing to him. He could roll the socket real easy, but for some reason I'll wrestle it around. I'll get it, and it'll look good finally, but the process I go through, there's times I just, instead of using my ball peen hammer, I want to take a sledgehammer.
Now, when he was teaching you, when Mr. Martin was teaching you, in what ways did it give you any clue as to how to teach others? Or did that come?
Yeah, he went through the whole process, and you just can't realize sitting here, if you never did that, how many steps there is into making a gig. They're just too many to remember. You know, what I try to do is be repetitious on certain things and do a number of them before I'd go on to the next step. Each step, if you got a good memory, I guess it'd work for you, but it was difficult for me to remember each and every step. After you learn it, it's like running a river in a boat. You know all the shallow places, you run it for a long time. But I've seen guys that could run the river riding in the front of the boat. They know every move, every shallow spot. But you put them back there on the motors, they couldn't do it. It just becomes different back there.
After you went through all that experience of learning yourself, was there something in particular that you felt was really important to convey to your apprentices about the experience of making gigs?
As Steve said a while ago, pick the right piece of steel. You don't want it pitted. It's got to be the right thickness, the right width. If you're making a river gig, you need about a 2.5 inch, no less than 2 1/4 inch piece of wide steel. Nothing's with thickness less than 1/4 inch, and I really liked 5/16 for width, but 1/4 inch will work, but it's you don't want anything less than that. It's too light, you know. So picking the steel and taking it slow as you go, and don't get mad if you burn a beard off.
Patience?
Patience, yeah. I didn't really start out to make gigs. I just wanted to know how they were made, and I wound up with that intent of just knowing, and I wound up I've made several dozen gigs now, but it's just all part of it, I guess. You get really deeply involved in it. It's a thirst for knowledge, I guess you'd say.